Good evening. Welcome to the City of Tempe Board of Adjustments meeting for September 25th, 2024. The time is now 6 p.m. The City of Tempe Board of Adjustment is authorized by Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe zoning ordinance. Its function is to grant relief where a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance would result in an unnecessary property hardship, to interpret provisions of the zoning ordinance, variances, and to hear appeals from any person or city official aggrieved by the decision of a person responsible for the enforcement of the zoning ordinances, usually the zoning administrator or hearing officer. The board has the City of Tempe Community Development staff summary reports on the items being considered at this meeting, and will use these reports in their deliberations. We're going to start with a roll call. I'm going to start from my right.
Brett Siegel.
And you got a
Brett Siegel.
Kaylee Palmer.
Vice Chair Kevin Morrow.
Ron Keiki.
Ricky Lingans.
Sean McCarley.
We have 6 board members present. I have been told that Dr. Miller is on his way and should be joining us at some point. He forgot about the meeting. Some staff introductions. We have Jeff Tamalevich, the Director of Community Development, Ryan Levesque, Deputy Director of Community Development, Diane Kaminsky, Principal Planner, Chris Jasper, Senior Planner, Lucas Jensen, Planner, Jennifer Daniels, our Administrative Assistant. From the City Attorney's Office, we have Clarence Matherson and Matt Mainsfield. We have Drew Yoakum, the Deputy Director, somewhere. He was hiding. We have Jack Schofield from Code Enforcement, Josh Biles from Sales Tax, Mike Baxley from Building Safety, David Fassick from the Fire Department, and Commander Hale is online from the Tempe Police Department. Until Dr. Miller is here, we have a short board. The concurring vote of 4 board members is necessary to make a decision on any application, regardless of the number of members. Therefore, applicants have the option to proceed or ask for a continuance to the next regularly scheduled meeting if we are still short at that time. During the public hearing, all applicants and interested citizens, when your item is called or when you wish to address the board, please make sure you filled out one of the citizens' request forms. They're located on the table or the doors. Then give them to Jennifer. I already have one. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and staff will assist in monitoring the time. Agenda items. We have 5 items on our agenda. We're going to start with the election of officers. We have 2 positions to elect, the position of chairman and the position of vice chairman. Do we have any discussion, nominations, grievances?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready to make a nomination.
Okay.
I nominate Kevin Morrow for chair and nominate Kaylee Palmer for vice chair.
I will second.
Diane, should we do them each one at a time? Okay. So let's start with the nomination for chair of myself.
Perfect. That works.
So I have a nomination and a second. All those in favor say aye by raising your hands.
Aye.
That's 5 in favor. I'll abstain. So that's 5 in favor, none against, 1 abstention. And so now I'm the chairman. Second act is nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Kaylee Palmer, for vice chair.
I will second that. We have a nomination and a second. All those in favor say aye by raising your hands.
Aye.
We have 5 in favor, none against. Are you going to abstain? And 1 abstention. Kaylee, you are now the vice chair. Conveniently sitting in the right spot. All right, we now have our election of officers. Item 2 is the consideration of meeting minutes from our May 22nd, 2024 meeting, which was that's okay. That was an abatement appeal and the Daisy Collective reconsideration. Are there any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye by raising your hands.
I'll abstain.
That's 5 in favor, 1 abstention. So we have approved the minutes. The next item on our agenda, we're going to go slightly out of order. So the Excel Society Incorporated, which is agenda item number 6, I've been told by city staff they are asking for a continuance to our next regularly scheduled meeting. And we'd like to hear from that first, if somebody from Exhale Society wishes to ask for a continuance.
Good evening, Chair Morrow and members of the board. My name is John Gillespie. I am an attorney at the Rose Law Group. I may have graduated from ASU Law School in 2018, but I do not know all facets of the law, and I'm not a cannabis attorney. Ryan Hurley is who I'm here on behalf of. Ryan Hurley is the attorney who's been working on this case for many months, representing Exhale Society. He came down sick today and could not make it to the hearing. I know that there had been some previous requests for continuances from this group for various reasons. So I called Ryan today to say, hey, you know, what's the merit of the request? And I couldn't understand him. He was coughing up a lung and too sick. So I fully understand that your staff has been working very hard on this case, that there are many members of staff, various departments that are ready to speak to this case. And I politely ask that they come back in a month to discuss this case and to really, I do not feel that we can adequately represent the interests of Exhale Society today without Ryan being here. So that's why we're asking for your consideration of a continuance to the next hearing.
Thank you. Members of the board, do we have any discussion?
So you guys are operating right now as a consumption lounge, right?
Chair Morrow and Member McCurley, to tell you as little as I know about the case, I can't even get into the details as much as that. They have been operating on site. I do know that there haven't been neighbor complaints necessarily, and there haven't been police calls to the site itself, so the immediate issues. But in terms of the merit of the case, we'd love to discuss that at the next hearing. My understanding is we consider ourselves a private lounge and club, and that's what we've been operating under. Persons come to the site and they bring marijuana of their own to the site. It's not sold on site, and it's consumed behind sealed doors, and that's the lounge club aspect.
And if we push this to the next meeting, would you guys still be operating this next month?
The operation has continued. We're open to your consideration if there's concerns about health and safety to neighbors or to the general public in the immediacy of the future. We're open to that, but as you can see, we've got employees on staff. There's an operation that is going on, and so there would be some effort that would need to put into winding that down just to come back and talk to you in a month.
Okay. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My concern about this is I'm looking at the history, and code compliance first contacted this business in February, quite a few months ago. And looking through the time frame, correction notices were given, a second correction, compliance notice was issued. Finally, a citation was issued, a second citation was issued, and then your clients finally decided to come in and try to obtain the necessary administrative relief to operate. That's concerning that there's such a long period of time where they were operating without the required variance, and subsequently they still need a use permit for this. So I guess I'm saying this. I'm concerned about pushing this off another month, simply because it seems like this property has continued to operate in violation. So if you were to tell us that you will stop all operations there for the following month, that might be a consideration that I'd be willing to consider. Thank you.
Member Key, I'll turn back. I'll have to talk to my client about that one because I didn't foresee that as being kind of a stipulation that might be helpful. I do completely understand these cases where there's code violations that are involved. It's one of those situations where you never want someone coming in asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission in the first place. So totally understand that. My contention is just that the difference between this hearing and the next hearing in the totality may be outweighed by the fact that they need to be adequately represented by their legal counsel who has been engaged to represent their interests.
Thank you. Chair, if I could ask one more question, please. Thank you. I am curious about the staff's position in this request for continuance and wondering if someone from staff would be willing to address that. Thank you.
Yes, we have Drew Yoakum who would like to speak on the matter. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Drew Yoakum, Deputy Community Development Director here with the City of Tempe. I just want to provide one quick clarification. At this time, Exhale Society, according to the violations with the code and across several different divisions with the city, cannot be in operation at this location at this time.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question, if I will. The 2 citations that were issued, have those fines been paid?
Thank you for that question, board member. One citation has already gone to court. The property owner failed to appear at that court hearing, and there's still another citation going forward with the business owner as well.
Thank you.
I do just have one question. So are they currently shut down, or are they supposed to be shut down?
That is a great question. I'm actually going to request the building official, Mike Baxley, to come up and speak to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Mike Baxley, I'm the Deputy Director over Building Safety for Community Development and the Building Official for the city. Currently, they do not have a valid certificate of occupancy. Nobody is allowed to occupy that suite at all until such time they get permits and complete the work that needs to be done.
Thank you. And have we confirmed that nobody is occupying the suite?
We have posted the suite. There is a sign on the door saying nobody is to occupy it at that point in time, and we've been by twice and haven't seen anybody there.
Okay, thank you.
I'll note we're been joined by Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, we are considering whether to continue agenda item 6, the request for variance for Exhale Society, the tobacco retailer. Their attorney, Mr. Ryan something, is sick and is unable to be present and has asked to continue it to October. I'm inclined to grant them one continuance if their attorney is sick. Anybody else have any opposing or agreeing thoughts?
I'd second that.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'll make that a motion in a second. I didn't want to shut down discussion in case there was more of that from anyone, but motion and a second to continue agenda item 6 to the October meeting. All those in favor? Okay, we have 1 in favor, 2 in favor, 3. All right, that's 5 in favor. Any opposed? That's 5 in favor, 2 opposed. The motion to continue agenda item 6, the variance request for Exhale Society, has been approved. And we will hear that at the next meeting, although I'll note for them that if their attorney is sick again in October, somebody else better be prepared to cover it.
We'll get them medicated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you then. Next is agenda item 4, a variance request for Red Star Vapor to reduce separation requirement between a tobacco retailer and a charter school located at 904 North Scottsdale Road. We should be hearing from.
Okay, thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the chair. My name is Michael Williams. I'm here on behalf of Red Star Vapor. I thank you guys for being here today to hear our variance. We are looking to move into Suite 106 at 904 North Scottsdale Road, and we're seeking your approval We are requesting a variance to reduce the minimum separation agreement from 1,320 feet to 900 feet. This is due to the discovery of a charter school, Budsman Charter School, that is in the Hayden Plaza to the north of Curry Road at 1290 North Scottsdale Road, at the same plaza as a Goodwill. If the location were to be measured from suite to suite by the nearest point, instead of the nearest point from plot line to plot line, it would be 1,380 feet. As you can see on this map here, the top circle is actually where the school is. The blue bubble is the 320 or 1,320 feet, and it's actually outside of that, but the property line is still in it because it is a rather large plaza, being approximately 715 feet from plot line to plot line for that suite.
Can you give me that number again?
I'm sorry?
What was the number you just said?
So from the plot line to the plot line, so Weber Road to the bottom of the plot line, there's the charter school at the top and the north side, which is where the circle is. And then right below that, there is a Goodwill. And then the bottom part of the plot line on this map here is about 715 feet from plot line to plot line. If we were to change it to 900 feet, from our plot line to the plot line nearest in the Hayden Plaza, it would be 953 feet, which is why we're requesting the variance to 900 feet. That way it's within that limit. Here you can get a closer look of where we're at, and then this would be the change. So if we were permitted to do a adjustment of that separation requirement, you can see that the blue circle now is behind that red line of the plot line. And then again, this was due to the discovery of the charter school. I got ahead of myself. So there would be no change to the property size, shape, or topography, location, or surrounding of the suite, only a change to the separation requirement. There is no other company in the area that is listed with our type of use, therefore no company would be deprived of its privileges. The adjustment is not the adjustment, if authorized, would not constitute a grant for any special privilege enjoyed. There is no other company with our type of use, and our use would not affect anyone in the vicinity. This request is not due to any self-imposed special circumstances, structural, or zoning issue created by the property owner. The variance is solely due to the presence of a charter school within the current 1,320 feet of separation requirement, which is measured property line to property line. Therefore, the need of this variance is not a result of any action or decision made by the property owner, but rather due to the existing external factors that are beyond the owner's control. And I had a little more here. I also just wanted to discuss the important topic that impacts the health and well-being of many adults. The benefits of vaping compared to traditional tobacco use, such as cigarettes. Our primary focus is helping the adults quit smoking tobacco products and ensure that vapor products remain out of the hands of youth through our strict 21 and over policy. Our staff has taken and will continue to take the Arizona retailer tobacco training that's provided through the state by Lenart's Consulting on behalf of the city of Tempe. That is a new regulation that actually had recently passed, where you have to take that class and show participation in order to get your certificate. And that certificate then gets you your tobacco license, which we have one location in Tempe right now that has that on rural. On top of we want to stay on top of our game, so we'll continue to send people that we have employed at this store once it is able to be opened. We already have one that has had the training with our expectation of opening because initially I was told by the city of Tempe we were okay and it was within the separation requirement. But it was later found out that they were going off the public schools and a charter school did show up when we got further into that use permit. And we had unfortunately already signed the lease. So for decades, smoking cigarettes has been a leading cause of preventable diseases and deaths worldwide. The harmful effects of smoking are well documented, ranging from lung cancer to heart disease and respiratory issues, and reducing life expectancy. Traditional cigarettes contain thousands of harmful chemicals, many of which are carcinogenic. The need for an effective alternative to help people quit smoking has never been more urgent. So here's where vaping comes in. Vapor products and e-cigarettes offer a viable alternative for adults seeking to quit smoking. Unlike traditional cigarettes, vaping devices do not burn tobacco and eliminate the combustion process that releases harmful tar and many toxic substances. Instead, they heat liquid using usually containing nicotine, flavoring, and other approved products such as propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin to create an aerosol commonly referred to as vapor. One of the most significant benefits of vaping is the potential to reduce harm. Public health organizations, including the Royal College of Physicians and Public Health of England, have done some studies and have acknowledged that vaping is significantly less harmful than smoking. Some studies suggest that it can be up to 95% less harmful. This reduction in harm is a crucial factor for adults looking to transition away from the dangers of smoking. Moreover, vaping can be an effective tool for smoking cessation. Many former smokers have successfully used vaping to gradually reduce their nicotine intake, eventually quitting nicotine altogether. The variety of strength and flavors available in vapor products allow users to customize their experience, making it easier to manage their cravings and withdrawal symptoms. However, while we do recognize the benefit of vaping for adults, we must also address the concern of our youth having access to these products. It is imperative that we maintain a strict 21 and over policy for the sale of vapor products. Protecting our children from the early nicotine addiction is a responsibility we all share. Studies have shown that early exposure to nicotine can negatively impact brain development and increase the likelihood of addiction to other substances. To ensure our youth are safeguarded, we must enforce stringent age verification processes in all retail and online sales of vapor products. Our employees are trained and held accountable to adhere to these regulations. Additionally, we all need to continue educating parents, teachers, and young people about the potential risks of associating with vapor. In conclusion, I would like to say vaping presents a promising alternative for adults seeking to quit smoking traditional tobacco products. By significantly reducing harm and offering an effective means of nicotine replacement, vaping can improve health outcomes for many individuals. At the same time, we must be vigilant in keeping these products out of the hands of our youth through the unwavering commitment of a strict 21 and over policy. Red Star Vapor is a locally owned business with 60 established locations in 5 different states: Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. Together, we can support adult smokers in our communities in their journey to quit and ensure that the next generation remains tobacco-free. Thank you for your attention and dedication to this important issue.
I had one question. In choosing this site, can you tell me where the closest vape and or other tobacco shops would be to your site?
I want to say we have another one. There's a hookah lounge in that same plaza where the Goodwill and Charter School is. But I want to say our closest, I think there's one that's about 4 miles away on rural. And we tend to, since these communities are so clustered with population, we tend to have one about every 5 miles practically. We have 62 locations total now, and a majority of those are all in Arizona. We employ about 212 people, I think was my last count.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
You said that there is a hookah lounge?
Yes, there is a hookah lounge that is in the same plaza as the charter school. It's to the south of Goodwill, where the charter school is to the north of Goodwill. So it's just on the other side.
Isn't there also some sort of smoke shop in the next shopping center up between the gun store and the coffee shop?
I didn't see one. I don't know if there's or not for sure.
What was it?
Are you referring to ProSource?
Well, there's ProSource at like McKellips and Scottsdale Road, and then there's the Adult Boutique and Video and Smoke Shop.
Is that on the other side of the road?
It's on the west side of Scottsdale Road between
North of Bikini Beans.
north of Bikini Beans, south of the gun store.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm aware of that one.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering if that one's within 1,300 feet. Interesting. Okay, any other questions? One more? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a question for staff. We're talking about different ways of measuring from location to location, correct? Is it my understanding that the way in which we're normally measuring from plot line to plot line, the standard that's used throughout the city?
Yes, that is defined in the zoning code. That's the way we measure it.
So in essence, if I'm understanding this correctly, what we're looking at is essentially somebody's asking the applicant in this case to change the methodology that's being utilized, which then, whether or not one says it's creating a new precedent or special circumstance, is in fact doing that, because other applicants could come in and cite this same decision as a rationale for saying, well, you shouldn't do it the way you've always been doing it. You should do it this way. And if you do it this way, it's going to benefit me, as opposed to doing it the way you have been doing it, which maybe doesn't benefit me. Is that logic more or less correct?
Does city staff have a presentation on this, I'm assuming?
Yes, we have.
How about we
staff has
hear
a
from?
presentation.
Maybe you'll answer my question then.
Oops.
Oh, we still have some questions for the applicant, and then we'll hear from city staff.
Sir, you mentioned that originally when they pulled the permits, there were no schools found. Do you have?
Correct. I actually
Documents for
went
that?
into the city and asked prior to signing our lease, because I wanted to make sure that we did meet separation requirement. And I was initially told that it did meet separation requirement, but that's because they were going off the public schools. And they weren't aware of that charter school until we got later into the use process. And I didn't have much of a choice but to do a variance at that point.
Did you receive anything from the city when you?
Yes, I worked closely with Lucas Jensen from the plan. Him and I talked multiple times back and forth. And he was the one that initially had told me they found a charter school. And then I was like, oh no, what do I do now? And he told me about the variance and how I could apply for it and all that.
But if I understand correctly, this is all verbal, nothing, not that I don't believe you're.
They actually have it documented that I came in prior on their sheet that you guys provided. On page 2, it does say and state, the applicant visited the planning center counter on January 1st, 2024 to inquire about the separation requirement for a tobacco retailer at this location, and was notified that the site met separation requirements for a tobacco retailer. This guidance was based on the most recent public school data available and did not capture the location of the charter school north of the site.
I did read that, sir. I just wasn't certain where it came from.
Oh, okay. That came from the city. That wasn't from me.
Thank you.
just one quick question about, once you found out that that you were going to need a variance when you started the use permit process. Did you reach out to your landlord at all to try to see whether or not there's any
Yes.
wiggle room there?
That was my first thing I did, because I wanted to see if they would let us sublease it. And at that point, they were not willing to let us sublease it, and we were, I believe, looking at about $150,000 to get out of it.
Are you aware or do you have any knowledge of this other tobacco using group next to the Goodwill? Did they have a permit or did they have a variance?
I believe they were there before the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I'm assuming we have someone from city staff to.
Am I good? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. Lucas Jensen, Planner 2 with Community Development Planning Division, assigned to PL 240156 for Red Star Vapor for the variance request. This request is a variance to reduce the separation requirement between a tobacco retailer and a charter school from 1,320 feet to 900 feet. For Red Star Vapor, the site is located at 904 North Scottsdale Road on the west side there. The applicant is Mike Williams of Red Star Vapor. As you can see, the site is zoned to GID, that's our general industrial zoning district, south of Curry Road, north of the 202, and on the west side of Scottsdale. The variance request is required due to the location of that charter school, less than 1,320 feet, which would require a variance to reduce that. The site plan for the project is very rudimentary, an older version of a site plan. There's no modifications to the existing site, so this is the Suite 106 that they'll be occupying. Floor plans, and I was there in person for the neighborhood meeting as well. Right now it's just Michelle, an empty suite, but the proposed floor plans includes display cases and then some rear storage, pretty typical of a tobacco or vape retailer. These are two maps that we saw before. The first one on the left-hand side is the 1,320 quarter-mile buffer between the subject property or around the subject property. Again, this is measured pursuant to Zoning and Development Code Section 3-423B. The tobacco retailers shall not be located within 1,320 feet measured by a straight line in any direction from a lot line of a charter, public, or private school. So that's where we get the lot line measurement as opposed to measuring to a suite or to the use. The 1,320-foot buffer does show that it intersects with the plot line for that commercial center. On the right-hand side is what the applicant is requesting, which would be a reduction in that separation requirement to 900 feet. If a variance were approved, they would still be required to go through the use permit process prior to operation. These are context photos of the site, one head on and then one looking north and looking south along Scottsdale Road. And addressing the approval criteria that staff reviews and evaluates these projects to, the lots are rectangular shape, 0.4 acres and approximately 153 feet of frontage along Scottsdale Road. In evaluating this criteria, it's typical of surrounding property in the area, and there's no special circumstances applicable to this property for approval criteria 1. Number 2, all properties in general industrial and the adjacent commercial shopping and services zoning districts are required to obtain a use permit approval for tobacco retailer, which includes separation requirements from schools. Staff finds that the strict application of this code treats all properties equally without conveying special privilege. Again, granting of this variance, staff feels would constitute a special privileges to this property, as all other properties are subject to use permit approval and separation requirement for tobacco retail uses in the same zoning district, that GID zoning district. the self-imposition on behalf of the property owner. So the school in question began operating in 2016, well before the application was made on May 1st of this year. The applicant did consult with planning staff beforehand, and as he mentioned, it was verbally noted that it met separation requirements. This was based on the current available mapping information based on public schools. Once a formal application for a use permit was submitted and assigned to me and reviewed, further review did reveal that there was a charter school, and I notified the applicant that we cannot process the use permit, and that the only path forward to operate this would be to pursue a variance for this use. The commercial plaza to the north, up on McKellips Road, is a large irregularly shaped lot. It extends about 685 feet south. And as he mentioned, the suite of the property does lie outside of that boundary. The answer for the hookah lounge, while we're on here, I did not verify through city records whether or not that was in legal operation before the school was sited there. Informally, we did check reviews online, and there are reviews dating back 10 years. That would imply that it was in operation before, but again, I can't verify that from city records at this time. The neighborhood meeting that's required for this project was held on August 26th at 6 p.m. At the subject property. I was in attendance there. We were there for till 6:30 p.m. There were no members of the public in attendance to that meeting. The public input, one quick update. So we received one call in opposition during the neighborhood meeting process, or while that was advertised. And then around 2 p.m. this afternoon, we received one comment card that you should all have access to and have printed out for you. Based on the strict approval criteria for a variance, staff's recommendation in this case is to deny. And then I'm open to any questions should you have any.
Do we have questions from the board for staff? All right, I'll start us off. In your position in the city staff, are you aware of other schools operating in commercial plazas in the city of Tempe, or is this kind of an unusual occurrence? If you don't know, that's fine. I'm just...
Yeah, I'm not sure I have the answer to that question. It's possible that Diana Kaminski is longer tenured with the city, might have an answer to that question. Sorry.
The charter schools do come and go within shopping centers throughout the city. We try to keep track of them. Our map is now tied to the state education board. So we're working on a GIS map to better populate those. And the private schools is kind of a similar situation. We do have some locations that require a use permit, and then that gives us the ability to identify them.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if this is a question as much as it is a thought. The tobacco retailer's property is not, special, for lack of a better word. But the commercial plaza, as you noted, is weirdly shaped. It's quite large. I'm not sure, and this kind of gets into rebutting Dr. Miller's comment, I'm not sure our plot-to-plot measurement was designed to measure the distance to schools that are in, for lack of a better word, a strip mall. I mean, the area within the 1320 feet is the hookah lounge, the Lebanese restaurant, and the Goodwill. It's not the school. So I think sort of flipping what we normally think about with variances, I think the special circumstances are where the school is, not necessarily where the tobacco retailer is. And I am quite sympathetic to the applicant that he signed the lease after being told the city staff said it would be okay. Anybody else have thoughts? Kaylee?
Quick question for you. So if, making the assumption, if a variance were to be approved, the applicant still has to obtain a use permit, which is a public hearing process. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and that is heard through the DRC?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we not take into consideration the fact that there is this hookah lounge basically right next door to the school?
No, Commissioner Lynn Gans, that's not something we would consider in our review. We're reviewing this on an individual basis as a standalone project, and the existence of a legal hookah lounge in that commercial shopping plaza wouldn't have any bearing on staff's position when reviewing it to the variance approval criteria.
Chair. I did want to address the question that came up earlier about the hookah lounge. The Mijana restaurant has been there for quite a while, and they did receive a use permit. The transfer between suites was 2009, so they've been there prior to 2009. The charter school, I believe, was 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Any other comments for city staff?
I'm going to call for the question.
Oh, well, before we do that, we need to, a couple things. We have a public comment.
I'm sorry. I'll withdraw.
So we have a request form from a Darlene Justice to speak. If you would like to speak, and then while you come up, I'll note that a resident, Kim, wrote a comment as a neighbor. She opposes the variance that would allow the store to go in, saying it is not a business that would enhance this part of Scottsdale Road in our neighborhood. So we did get that one public comment. Ms. Justice, we usually give speakers about 3 minutes, so we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I live in North Tempe, north of the Pond, I call it. I live in this neighborhood. There were several things. A question was asked about how often do they have their businesses, and they talked about 4 miles to the south. There is another business that is to the north, just a little bit north of McDowell Road, and it's not 2 miles, but it's a little over 1 mile in that direction. I happened to see that today, and we do measure things according to the way the city does it. And according to this, they are in the wrong place. I understand, and I feel really bad that they got misinformation. Frankly, if that was me, I'd be asking the city how they're going to rectify that. That doesn't mean that we have to have this in our neighborhood. Ombudsman is a charter school. You know, one of the things we're talking about is tobacco and vaping. We're not talking about hookah. We're talking about kids, young people, people that go to ASU that are under 21. The reason that this variant, where this ordinance is there, is because they say no one under 21, but we've got so many young people that are hooked on vaping, and they have proven that it really affects their lungs in a very negative way. I'm a retired engineer from Motorola, and I was a process engineer, and they talk about how this is so safe. How many different chemicals do they use to make different flavors? How many different chemicals go into this stuff? Tobacco we know is bad. Tobacco is worse than when I was young because they've done a lot of things to tobacco. So why is this ordinance there? This ordinance is so that young people aren't inundated with these types of businesses. We have a problem across the street, that's a county island, okay? And there's a lot of stuff there that's not good for young people either, okay? But we have this ordinance. We've got another one that I was surprised. They wanted to go within 250 feet of a school. When are we going to draw the line and say that this ordinance is important and don't start tweaking away at it? He wants a 30% difference. You know, let's ignore almost a third of the distance, the way that's measured by the city. And I have no problem with this young man or with his business, but I tell you, Tempe needs to stand strong. We need people that are here on this commission. When are we going to draw the line? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. You want to call a question?
Yeah, I'm going to call for the question.
Okay.
I'll call for the question.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would make a motion to grant the variance based upon the fact that condition 4 which states a variance may not be granted if special circumstances applicable or self-imposed, that in fact in this situation, this special circumstance was actually externally imposed by misinformation provided by the city. That's unfortunate, but I think it's a fact. I'm not a fan of vaping by any means, and but I also don't think we're here to discuss the pros and cons of it. That's not what we're about. We're talking about 400 feet, and how long does it take you to walk 400 feet? If you move the business 400 feet, it would still be there, and the issues would still be the same. And I think in this case, the owner has made a good faith effort. Situations occurred. I move to grant the variance.
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Kiki?
Thank you. I'd like to comment on this but prior to the vote. Again, I'm sensitive to the idea that information was not accurate at the get-go, but the ordinance is the ordinance. And I feel like if we were to approve this variance, we would just basically be kicking the can down the road and turning it over to the DRC for the use permit requirement. Now that can go one way or the other. So I'm not going to support the motion, but I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
And
Yes, Katie?
Chair, I would also like to add on to that. So I am completely sympathetic to the applicant that the lease is signed. However, it's always been known that a use permit, even if the distance met the requirements, a use permit was still required, which is also a subjective process. I'm not seeing anything that meets the 4-part test. So for that reason, I will not be supporting.
Any other comments before we vote? All right.
My vote is going to be in favor, and the reason being, it bothers me, number one, that we're being very picky as to distances here, how we're going to measure and things like that. It bothers me that there is a hookah lounge almost right next door to the charter. And yes, they are grandfathered in, but that's like on Broadway Road, we have a, for lack of a better word, adult store, which normally could never be there, and it's grandfathered in. At some point, we kind of have to be a little bit lenient, I think, in some of our ordinances, and let's also think in terms of what are the people involved with. We're looking at, okay, there's a certain amount of tax coming in, things like that, but I'm looking at it more from the standpoint, you're looking at a store that's going to be on a major road. Kids would have to cross Curry, and Curry is a very busy road. I'm sure most of us have driven on it at some point. You've got the county island there. I see so many things that are variances, and I see no reason not to approve it. So my vote will be in favor.
All right. Unless there's any other comments, I think it's time for the formal vote. We have a motion and a second to approve the variance. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye by raising your hands. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes in favor of the motion. All those opposed. I have 2 opposed. By a vote of 5 to 2, the variance is approved.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one comment since we've now voted. Sure. I do not want at least my vote to be seen in any way as an endorsement of the business or of a reduction in the distance separations that are required in statute. But I think in this case, we had a situation, and I think we're trying to fix it.
I absolutely agree. All right. That takes us to agenda item number 5, the Secretariat Drive variance to reduce the required side yard building setback from 15 to 7 feet and side yard setback for accessory building from 3 feet to 2 feet for an addition at 1701 East Secretariat. The applicant is Justin Dahl James.
Yes.
Okay, I tried my best.
Hey, how are you? I'm Justin L. James. I'm an architect, and this is
Ed Durham, I'm the owner.
owner of the house. So we can see on this aerial map here, we were helping out the new owner. He bought this in 2022.
November 2.
Yep. And he was looking to do an addition on the property. And so we were helping him out, and we were getting some drawings together. We were looking at all the setbacks, making sure that the addition was going to work with that. When we were getting close to submitting for getting the permit drawings together, we had a survey done, and it was revealed that the property lines are not necessarily where the walls are. There were a couple additions or work that has been done on the property that were basically dimensioned off of, we're calling it like the historic property line, which is assumed to be where the center of the walls are. So both of these structures are additions. One of them had a variance. It was for the, we'll do the first one, 1977 when the house was built. Were you able to see a mouse?
Just use the left and right arrows on the clicker.
Okay, thank you. There we go. So the gray box that's kind of in the middle of the property here, that is a detached structure. There was a variance granted for that in 1977 when the house was built. But you could see the colored lines. This is kind of messy if you can't zoom in here, but it was located off of what was assumed to be the property line at the center of the wall, we'd assume. It's supposed to be 5 foot, but it's actually, with the recorded lines on the survey, it's actually about 2 foot. The garage addition was in 1977. That one had a variance approved to decrease the side setback to 11 foot. When you factor in what the actual property line is, it's actually about 7 foot. So what we're looking to do is get 2 variances to bring both of these built structures that were, it wasn't anything that the owner, he basically inherited these situations. It wasn't anything they brought on himself. But we'd like to get those 2 existing structures and conditions in compliance with setbacks. So we're asking for decrease of the detached structure to 2 feet, so we won't have to move anything or do anything with it. And then with the garage, we're asking to decrease that side setback to 7 foot. And the addition, which you can see on here, which isn't grayed out, that would be the new addition structure. We would honor the 11-foot side setback with that. So we wouldn't, be looking to push everything further, if we get granted or acceptable with the decreasing on the side setback for the garage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Seeing none. Thank you. Do we have someone from city staff to comment on this?
Good evening, Chair, members of the Board of Adjustment. My name is Chris Jasper, Senior Planner with the City of Tempe. I'm the project manager on this case, and I'll be presenting the 2 variance requests. So as the applicant stated, there are 2 variance requests before you this evening. One is a variance to reduce the required side yard setback on the east side from 15 feet to 7 feet to accommodate a pre-existing built attached garage and then a future building addition. And then a variance to reduce the required side yard setback for an accessory building from 3 feet to 2 feet to allow for a pre-existing accessory building that was previously constructed and permitted. As the applicant stated, these variance requests would functionally update 2 previously approved variances that were approved by the city in 1977 and 1991, respectively, to allow the detached accessory building, and the attached garage addition. As they noted, the property boundary was assumed to share or be located where there's a shared wall. That's what the plans show in those 1977 and 1991 variance requests and subsequent building permits. As they noted, subsequent surveys revealed that that wall was actually constructed about 3 to 4 feet off the property line on the adjoining neighbor's property, and that the actual property line is about 3 to 4 feet west. And we have some theories about why that is. There is a utility easement, a 3-foot utility easement that runs north-south on most properties in this neighborhood, the Sunburst Farms Tempe subdivision. There's a requirement that structures do not be placed on top of the utility easement. And so I think the walls were offset, perhaps a little too far, and that's where we are today. As I noted, both structures were permitted, both via approval of the variance, and building permits were approved for both structures. So provided elevations of the proposed building addition, which does match the existing architecture of the house. Due to the kind of unusual nature of the angle of the lot, where the structure is kind of offset a bit, any building addition would necessarily, as it extends southward on the plane of the property line, would encroach within that side yard setback, particularly if you try to align with the existing attached garage. So we feel that there are special circumstances that are present on the lot, and so that criteria is met. Criteria number 2 is about whether the approval of this, strict application of the code would deprive this property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district. There are a lot of variances in this neighborhood. This condition is present on other properties. And I think I listed 7. Our mapping data pulled out more. There's a ton of variances, use permits for reductions in the side yard setback to allow attached garages, building additions, accessory structures. So there is a precedent within the neighborhood that we feel it is appropriate to allow this variance, or these variance requests, consistent with those previous approvals. And this property has 2 variance approvals already, so here's that map that I referenced. Numbers 5 through 14 are specifically within the Sunburst Farms Tempe subdivision and planned residential development. As I noted, authorizing this would not represent a special privilege just because there are so many variance cases that have been granted for similar uses in the same zoning district and within the neighborhood, so there's no conflict there. And we feel that there is no self-imposition of these special circumstances because we granted variances, we approved building permits, and all of those were predicated on false assumptions that this applicant is simply trying to rectify.
Thank you. Sorry, you were going to use self-talk.
Yeah, I've got all the boilerplate stuff. There was a neighborhood meeting, residents attended, they were generally supportive. So our recommendation is to approve with the unique condition number 3, specifically that any changes to the accessory structure, because it's within 2 feet of a property line, if you convert it into a livable space or expand it further, that wall would need to be fire rated on that side of the property.
Thank you.
There is a legal term called open and notorious you may be familiar with.
Yes.
And as I look at this, somebody's giving away property to somebody else.
So you
Definitely open and notorious in the legal term.
Yes, Chair Board Member Gans, that is a private issue, I would say, if there is going to be a determination of, I'm blanking on the phrase, I know this, I'm AICP.
Adverse possession.
Adverse possession.
There you go.
Boy, just blanked. But that is a private process to determine, whether there was a proper adverse possession claim, and that's not reflected on the current deed for
In
the
doing
site.
this, is the city not aiding and abetting that process?
Board Member Gaines, I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, if the city approves this and goes to the new surveyed property line rather than the historic property line, as I look at the pictures that we have here, particularly image 3, there's quite a difference there. And that's where my curiosity comes in, not necessarily affecting my vote, but my curiosity, is the city in one way or another aiding one or the other property owner in that type of a situation?
Board Member Gans, I suppose I would hesitate to say that the city is aiding and abetting, just because that seems like a very loaded phrase. This variance approval would not allow for the structures in question to encroach beyond the property line. We would simply be allowing them to be located closer to that property line. Now, if there are questions about where that shared wall is to be located, that can be coordinated between the two property owners. I'm not aware of any civil action between or among those property owners. If there is a request or desire to move that shared wall onto the actual property line, if it's over 6 feet, we'll process a building, over 7 feet, we'll process a building permit for it, but otherwise, I don't believe that the city would otherwise be involved beyond this variance approval.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions,
Not a question.
okay, I was just gonna say we have to see if there's any public comments. Have we had any public comments? No. Would you like to call the question?
Just make some comments and maybe lead towards that. I'm not going to repeat all of the information that was in the staff report and the presentation. It was all very well highlighted. But in my opinion, this is a classic textbook example of why a variance should be requested for all the reasons listed in the staff report. So I will support the variances requests, and I'm happy to make a motion and when the board's ready.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the variances.
I actually need to make the motion.
Oh, you need to make, would you like to make?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I move to approve the request for a variance to reduce the required side yard building setback from 15 feet to 7 feet, and a variance to reduce the required side yard setback for an accessory building from 3 feet to 2 feet to allow for a building addition subject to the 3 conditions listed in the staff report for 1701 East Secretariat Drive.
Now I will second that.
Now we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye by raising your hands. I see 7 hands, none opposed. By a vote of 7-0, the motion carries and the variances are approved. That takes us to agenda item 7, chair, staff updates and announcements. I don't have any announcements. Staff, do you have any announcements?
Congratulations on your appointments. We will be having a meeting in October. We have one case for a variance, and that is for a front yard engineered shade canopy in the front yard setback.
Plus the Red Star tobacco
And
brands.
now the Red Star.
Okay.
Or Exhale Society.
Sorry, we just approved Red Star.
Thank you, yes.
All right.
I have a question, comment, please. So, Diana, it seems like we didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Jack and thank him for his job as the chair over the last several months, years, in fact. I'm going to assume the city sends him some sort of a thank you, correct? Please say yes. Just say yes.
I'm new to this position, so I'm not sure what Ambika may or may not, maybe Jennifer knows.
Okay. Well, if we ever hear from Jack again, please send our thanks.
This is
Well, it looks
Mr.
like
Levesque.
Ryan's got something for us.
Yes, there was certificates of recognition for his years of service here.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. None opposed. The time is now 7:05, and we are adjourned until October. Thank you, everyone.